Hey guys, so just wanted to make a quick video just going over the purchase process of getting a G80 because I'm sure it's something that a lot of people think about when they're purchasing a G80 and what to kind of look out for and stuff. So I think obviously, G80 are are pretty hype right now. Um they're they hold their value really good. So I just want to kind of like walk through the process of how I found this car and what are the things that I look for in like the finance application, versus like a lease and all those kind of things. So basically, once I'm gonna be making a video, it might be posted already or after, but how I wanted to get a G80 M3. Once I was set on, getting a G80 M3, the next thing was, um, you know, to find the best deal. So obviously, I went to my local BMW dealer, and I'm from a small town. They were like 3 or 4 allocations away, so they were like, it's gonna take a year. So the other thing is that like my M5 was at 29,400 miles, so I didn't want to keep driving it because the more I drive it, the minute it goes over 30,000 miles, the value is going to drop a lot just based on the comps. And a good tool that I would recommend everyone to look at, if you want to look at like, market trends and some good statistics, I'm an engineer, I love looking at data, is classic.com. It's a really good tool if you're looking for a car, or if you're like, want to keep your car and you want to see the values of your car as well. So that's how I was able to identify that, once I drive over 30,000 miles, the value is going to tank just based on that data. So what I did is I just basically went on Auto Trader and then I looked at a bunch of G80 M3s. I looked at like 2025 new, and I looked at pre-owned as well just to see. Unfortunately, like all the pre-owned ones were either like had like 5 to 10,000 miles, which I didn't want to do that if I was gonna get like a 2025. I wanted the 2025 because of the headlights, the updated power, and the steering wheel. I did for a second look at like 2023s or 2024s, but it literally just doesn't make sense. This same car with the same option, it originally had a sticker price of around like 86 or 88 back in 2023. And with 30,000 miles, like the best deal I can find is like 89. And this car sticker is 93. So that means like whoever bought that car, kudos to them, because they probably only paid like 85 or 86 because this is a car without the bucket seats. 86, 87, and then it's selling for that much. Obviously, they probably traded in for like 83, 84, which is still a good deal for whoever bought that, a couple years back. But obviously, right now, it's kind of a weird situation with the tariffs and stuff going on. Right now, BMW is keeping all their same prices. And then what's interesting is like the week that I got the M3s, now the 2026 allocation started coming in. The 2026 one, like the same spec of mine, is like 2 grand more, which is not too bad because usually that's how BMW does like year over year model year changes. But I just wanted a 2025, because like I said, I wanted something that was on a dealer inventory. So the hard part is these cars never sit on lots. They are usually gone, especially because most of these cars are customer order cars. So obviously in Chicago, it's a very competitive landscape. I was able to kind of get like a pseudo deal worked out for one, trading in M5, the M3. And then I wanted to find the right spec. So I originally found a car that was Dravit Gray with the Silverstone interior, which is a really good spec, but I just wanted the green because one, I can save the money. I didn't feel like the Dravit Gray was worth $1,500, and I wanted the Tartufo interior because I'm having a kid, and it's the same color as poop. So if anything happens, very easy to clean, very easy to take care of, and I think the Tartufo is more of like a rare option. You barely see the Tartufo. You always see the orange, red, and the white interiors, and I really wanted the green. So I think in terms of like looking for specs and stuff, I would say the best way is like going on Auto Trader, and then from Auto Trader going to that specific BMW dealer's website and then looking for the build sheet. And also another good tool is like if you just want to confirm something, like because usually what I notice is most of these cars, they'll have the 19 and 20-inch wheels, but if you want to confirm like which type, whether the black or the bicolor, you can go to the BMW VIN decoder website and you can put in the VIN and you can find the full options, and then the dealer's not lying or they're not confused or whatever. So yeah, just to kind of take one step back, what I would say is, if you guys are looking for like a used M3, I would highly advise against that, just because the markups on these cars are a lot. And if you think about it, like an M3 is an enthusiast car. Majority of the enthusiasts that are driving,
I didn't understand that.
BMW. Yeah, most of the enthusiasts that are driving these cars are going to be modifying it. They're going to be doing stupid stuff. And just as a simple thought, right? Like, say you pull up to a red light, you're in an M3 and you have like a Mustang or I don't know, like a Porsche right beside you, you're going to rip on that car. This is not a car that you drive just to work and back. It's an enthusiast car. If you can get something new that one has the warranty, has no miles, and you gotta remember, BMW has a 3-year free maintenance program. That itself is like worth a lot, because on my M5, I got an extended warranty just for the maintenance. It was a pretty good deal. I shopped around with other dealers, and it was like $1,000 for a year. And that $1,000 was good, like, because the M5 is very maintenance heavy after that 20,000 mile mark, and I had to do a lot of work, and it covered it. That's good. But instead of spending that, like, think about like if I was to get like a car for 87 or 88 with the same amount of options, 20,000 miles, I can get a brand new for just 3-4 grand more, and it's 2025. And I'm sure that will hold up a lot better, versus like driving from 20 to 40,000 versus driving from 0 to 20,000 miles. I'm sure this car will do wonders in terms of resale value, especially because the gas powered M3s are soon going to be phased out. The manual ones are going to be phased out as well. So yeah, just to go back, I was shopping for these cars. Originally I was looking at a manual, but unfortunately, like, my wife is not the very best manual driver. I experienced that with my G87 M2. So I just wanted to get something all-wheel drive that was a comp. It just made some more sense, especially since I have to drive to Michigan and Canada a lot for visiting family and stuff. So honestly, like, if you want a car that'll hold more resale value, the best option would be getting something manual. Just because there's lower MSRP, you can get it for like around mid 80s, and in the resale market, like, they go for like high 70s, like 77, 79, all that kind of stuff. The comps, if you can get a bucket seat, I would definitely recommend getting the bucket seat. Yeah, so just going back to the bucket seats thing, it's the bucket seats are really worth the money, especially as a brand new option. It's $4,500. Like, that's a no-brainer. The thing for me is, like, I drive a lot, and especially my wife is pregnant. I had her sit in it once, and it was like super scary. But yeah, because of that, like, I couldn't get the buckets. Hopefully the next one, if I do get another G80 M3, I'd like to get something individual and with bucket seats. So that's something that, if you guys are looking out for M3s, like, if you can get an individual car with bucket seats for sticker price, that's like a pretty good option. So since this car is not an individual color and it doesn't have bucket seats, the good thing is I was able to shave off some money off the MSRP. So I would typically say, like, the best way to go to BMW dealers is, like, obviously you got to shop around, and shop around in a big metropolitan city like Chicago, which is what I did. So I found out, like, a few of these cars that was available. So most of these cars are customer orders. Like I said, you'll find some cars that they'll come to the port, and then, or they'll come to even the dealer. I think this car was like that. It came to the dealer and the customer backed out. So obviously, like, for some situation like that, like, the dealer, they want to get rid of the car as soon as possible, right? My car, like, they didn't even have to post pictures or anything, so that's like a huge margin for them, right? Because every time they post a picture, that's time, labor that they have to spend for someone to do work, right?
Pardon?
Oh man, it's BMW. Yeah, so I would say, like, typically, like, on like non-M cars, you can definitely negotiate about like 6 or 7% off MSRP. What I did was, I basically got around like $2,500 off, 2,500, almost $3,000 off. What I did is, just to make it a little bit better for me, is instead of asking the money off the MSRP, I just basically asked like a higher amount for my trade-in. The reason why I did that is just because of, in Illinois, we have a tax incentive for trade. So my car, if I got $70,000, for example, I wouldn't have to pay $70,000 worth of tax. So I wanted to just increase that number more. So the dealer was willing to work with that, and they were able to give me a good deal. So originally, like in my M5, I had a lot of equity in that car just because when I originally bought that car, or when I originally bought the M2, I put a lot of equity. I put like $10,000 down just because I wanted to keep lower payments. And then when I got the M5, I put like another 10,000 down, which now thinking about it was kind of stupid. Um, but the dealer was, they gave me a good option. Like, they said that, I could do like balloon finance or regular finance or like a lease. And then for all those three options, they gave me an option where I can basically pull the equity out of the car. So I was really considering doing a lease and pulling the equity out of the car. It made a lot of sense because I would have got like a check for like $15,000-$20,000 back, and then the residuals on the M3s are pretty cool. The After 3 years, the residual for this M3 is $53,000. So I'm sure if you look at like not just G80 M3s, even if you look at like F80 M3 leases and anything like that, I'm sure you can make just like I'll kind of lowball it. Like you can make like $10,000-$15,000 at the end of the lease. The reason why I went with a finance option is one because in Illinois we have the tax incentive for the trade. So if you go from a finance to a lease, or if you just go to a lease, you can't get that tax incentive. So I saved like $5,000 on taxes there. The second thing is I wanted the flexibility. So I wanted to be able to jump out of this car in like 6 months or 1 year or 2 years instead of the 3 years fixed, right? Especially because I drive a lot and because I change my cars a lot, I wanted that flexibility. The third thing is the lease fees and payment structure. So obviously lease and finance, like the way the payment or the payoff works is very different, right? So in a lease, how it pretty much works is like your payment is or your payoff is based on your residual plus the number of your payments. So like 53,000 plus, I don't know, I think they were quoting like $1,500 for 36 months. So if you add that together, it's like 100 and something $1,000, 103, $105,000. It's a lot because of the interest. You're paying for a cost to borrow the car. So the problem with that is like after a year, your payoff amount is like still like 90 something thousand, versus if I finance the car, my payoff after a year is like, somewhere in the 70s, 80s because I have the equity. The other thing with the lease payment is if you want to end the lease early, you got to pay a fee. If you buy another BMW, you don't have to pay that fee. But say if I wanted to grab a Porsche or something like that, I got to pay that fee. Plus, the other weird thing about BMW North America is if you want to trade in your lease and get another car, you gotta find like I don't know, like a Lexus or Porsche dealership that also has a BMW dealer that can do the paperwork through their BMW system. Otherwise, BMW doesn't allow third-party buybacks, which is starting to become a lot more trendy nowadays. A lot of people, like a lot of companies, they're not allowing that, which makes sense. They want you to stick within the brand, right? So honestly, looking back, like if I was able to buy this car like before my M5 and I knew I was gonna stick within the BMW world, this would definitely make sense. Let's see how the next year or two plays out. If there's an X3M or like a new X5M plug-in hybrid, something with a V8 and plug-in hybrid, I definitely consider that, and that time I can do it. And like how I basically calculated and came to this conclusion of going finance is one, the interest rates, and one, the payment structures, right? So obviously going with finance, like a longer, like a 72-month finance, your payments are gonna be a lot less. But what I did to kind of compare with the lease is I looked at like my ownership cost for the 3 years. So your ownership cost for 3 years for a lease is pretty much just your payments. That's it. And then for finance, what you gotta do is you gotta do your payments plus whatever equity you'll get, after it. So you basically have to look at an amortization schedule calculator. Look at that, find it out. There's a lot of tools online. I'm sure you guys, if you're buying a G80 M3, you should be smart enough to look up that. So I did all those calculations, and when I looked at the 3-year cost, financing was pretty much like $10,000 cheaper. But the one thing that I will say that a lot of dealers say is, so in a lease, you have like gap insurance, which means that the dealer will pay whatever you paid for the car. That's why they always recommend not to put as much money down on a lease, because say if you put $10,000 down and you crash the car, you won't get it. The other hindsight of a lease is, say if you crash a car and your car goes down $10,000, you don't have to worry about it because it's just a rental, you give it back. With the finance, like keeping that much equity, like now that I think about it, it's kind of like a stupid decision financially, because say if you have like $20,000 equity and you crash your car and it goes down $10,000, you just lost $10,000 worth of equity in your car. But I like how like the finance structure works. And then the one thing that like a lot of people, when you're looking at lease versus finance, like look at the interest rate, right? Look at how much you're paying to borrow the car and how much is your final out the door cost, right? Another important thing that you got to look at leases is when you're at your lease end, you have to give the car back to BMW in their certain performance criterias, right? So you got to make sure the tires are good, the paint is good. So how dealers upcharge you for that is like they'll want to make sure that you have like the BMW Star tires. Like if you get a windshield replacement, it has to be like BMW. They make you get like a wear and tear package. So all those things kind of add up. So honestly, like at the end of the day, the main thing you got to look at is like the cost of borrowing. So I think this is a pretty cool, interesting thing. So usually I always get my cars whenever I buy a brand new car from BMW, I usually get it from BMW Financial. This time I actually went with the dealer and they were actually able to give me a better rate than BMW. So I think for this car, the 72-month rate was like 6.79%. And my credit union, they were giving around like 5.44 or something like that. My dealer basically did a credit app and they were able to beat my credit union. So they were able to give me like, I think like 0.5% or 1% better than the 72-month rate. And it was through like a major bank. I think it was like Chase or Bank of America, one of those. So the good advantage of that is like if you go through the credit union, you got to like pick up the check, you got to do all the paperwork, and you got to like communicate with them. You got to be the middleman. This one, the dealer's the middleman, so you don't have to worry about bringing anything, and they'll do all the paperwork afterwards. So that's something I definitely recommend. And the one thing that I notice a lot of dealers they're doing is they never tell you what the interest rate is on leases. So make sure you guys ask what is your money factor, convert that to an interest rate, because that was the one reason why I went away. So on leases, this is also another pretty cool thing. So what I learned is that all these like M3s and M5s, they're very hard cars to get, and some dealers they give them at MSRP. I'll say it again, quote unquote MSRP. So really what they're doing is there's a rate from BMW, say it's like, I think for this car it was like 5.5. So what they're doing is they'll give you the car for MSRP, and then they're charging like another 1 to 1.5% increase in your interest rate, and basically that's how they make money, right? Some dealers are open about it, which I really appreciate. Some dealers, they don't disclose that. They say, hey, this is the best rate you can get. So in reality what they're doing is they're just making money from all that interest, that interest rate percent increase. So what I did was, like, when I was looking at the lease and also the finance option, I was able to work with my dealer and negotiate that down. So you obviously everybody needs to make money, right? That's how business works. So in that 1% markup, you can kind of talk to your dealer and say, okay, are you able to negotiate down like 0.5%? And most dealers were able to like work with me on that. So that's pretty good. So I think for lease, just to kind of have like a final comparison, the best lease interest rate that I got was like 6.49. That was after negotiating. And then for finance, I think I got 5.4. So this is why having good credit really matters, and it really pays off, because instead of getting like the BMW rate, I was able to get outside financing for much cheaper, get a lower payment, and be able to afford this car. And the one thing that I wanted to do was that I had a goal of was like I wanted to keep the payments like relatively close to like $1,000 a month, just because it made more financial sense to me. Like, I always try to make sure that, from your income, like half of your income should be going for like bills and shit like that, like your mortgage payment, cars, and all this stuff. And your others should be like investments, savings, and expenses. So that's kind of how I plan. So obviously, if I went with the lease option, it would have been another $500 more. But then how I was calculating it is the equity that I get from this car would be able to pay that $500 difference. So honestly, looking at it, it's probably would have been a better choice to get a lease. But just with my lifestyle and how it works, like I told you guys, I want to be able to get out of this car whenever I want to. And I want to be able to go and get another brand because I think, as much as I love BMW, I think I definitely want to try something different. I've had an M2, M3, M5. I think I've tried like all the more performance enthusiast spec related cars. So it's time to try something new. But let me know if you guys have any questions. I guess the other thing is, I always tell everyone to like avoid getting like dealer warranties and stuff like that. That's also another point of negotiation. So if you're interested in one of those aftermarket options, that can also help you get more leverage in negotiating the car. So part of how I was able to get that is I got the PPF done. So I think the PPF was done by an Expel shop. Make sure you guys ask to get it done by Expel certified shop, because if there's any warranty related issues, you can get done by Expel, and their quality is like standardized. So this is one of the Expel shops. I think for the front clip PPF, like Expel as a standard price is $12.95. If you ask any shop, they're gonna give you the same price, $12.95. I think the dealer charged like $1,600 or something like that because they're making money. But obviously, the advantage is like I wanted to get it done before I get back home, which I had like a 2.5 hour drive. The second thing is that I was able to put it part of the finance of the car. So it was just maybe like a $20 increase in my payment. So I was like, you know what? Makes sense. I don't have to bring up that capital now, right? I don't know. I can use that money for other stuff like mods or getting the windows tinted and stuff like that. And I did get the tire and rim protection package. I usually get that on my BMWs, especially the M cars, just because these tires are really low profile and you never know. So I've had like on my M2, I didn't get the tire package. Nothing happened. On my M240i, I got it, and I ran through like 3 set of tires. On the M5, since I bought that used and it had like an aftermarket set of wheels, I didn't get with it, and I wish I got it because I had to get like all 3 new tires just because one had a bubble, 2 of them were like worn out, and they had like other issues with it. So this time I got it, and that you can definitely negotiate as well. So make sure that all those packages, like work with your finance manager, whatever, negotiate it. They can get you a good deal. It's, if you say like you're gonna get this and this, and you're gonna finance with them, which is also a good way for them to make money, right? So use all these talking points to negotiate it down. The tire rim protection package, how I look at it is like my metric that I kind of use is, as long as like I go and look on like Tire Rack, like how much it costs to replace like 2 tires, and if the tire and rim protection package is around that price, I do it, because like somehow in your 3-year ownership experience, you're gonna go through 2 sets of tires somehow, right? With like nails or bumps or whatever. And especially these M3s are really low profile tires. And then the good thing about mine is like it has everything. It has like windshield chip repair, it has tires, it has wheels. Like even if you bent your wheel, it covers that. It even has like PDR cover too. So all that for the same price. So that I definitely recommend, if you guys can get a good deal, do it. If not, you can pay for the tires. You're probably gonna end up paying that much for the tires too. So it really depends on how your use is. Like I'm gonna be driving a lot in this car, and I'm gonna be enjoying this car. I'm not gonna be babying this in my garage. I'm gonna be driving it a lot. Just in this 1 week, I already have like 600 miles on it, and I'm just going back to work and back, and just going for car meets and stuff like that. But hopefully next year we can go on a nice road trip on this car and we can document it. But let me know if you guys have any questions on how you went through the finance versus lease approach, and how you negotiated. If you guys have any questions, or if you have any tips and tricks for me, I'd really appreciate it as well. Stay tuned, like and subscribe, and yeah, hope you enjoy this video.